So, good evening, everyone. We are going to continue the discussion about the removal of obstacles as given by Srila Bhaktivinode Thakura in his Krishna Samhita, wherein he equates symbolically the various killing of the demons by Krishna and Raj, which are referred to as occasional pastimes, as opposed to daily pastimes. So the Lord has his daily eightfold unfoldment of his Lila on a regular basis. And then occasionally he manifests that Lila within the material realm in order to attract his intimate devotees who have made a determination that this is really not the place to be. So he's giving some facility and manifesting these occasional pastimes. And we learn from the great sadhus in our sampradaya that, generally speaking, as a general rule, for someone who is aspiring to enter into the Lord's personal association in eternity, as a general rule, their last material birth is a birth that affords them the opportunity to personally engage in the Lord's Lila in Vraj Bhumi, Bhumi being the material plane. So Vraj Bhumi is that place where these occasional occurrences of disruption to Krishna's routine take place. Well, nothing can really disrupt Krishna's routine, but still, for those that are familiar with both his daily pastimes in Goloka and his occasional pastimes in the material realm, it appears to be a disruption to that meditation. Now we find in Krishna Samhita, Bhaktivinode Thakura talks a lot about throughout the book, and particularly before and after his discussion of the symbology of the demons, about natural samadhi, entering into natural samadhi. He makes it quite clear that it is not an artificial imposition, as some other samadhis would be experienced by us. Like a samadhi wherein, he brings this out, and mentions Sankhya. The Sankhya philosophy would give us an opportunity to meditate upon the material creation and how it manifests. First, there's some sound, and the sound has to come through. So there's ether, and the ether is able to carry sound. And from ether, we have the air, and then we have fire. And then the living entity senses come into play and are developed around those different material elements. So going backwards, earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, false ego. So the yogi can meditate on that, but that's not the kind of meditation and the kind of samadhi that Bhaktivinode speaks about in Krishna Samhita. Krishna Samhita speaks about that samadhi which is arrived at naturally through a natural, and he speaks about wherein the mind is pushed aside. It's a natural. We enter into it naturally, as opposed to artificially. Our spiritual master, A.C. Bhaktivinode Swami Srila Prabhupada, always mentioned that Krishna consciousness is not an artificial imposition on the mind. So there's a lot in that statement. A lot in that statement. Not an artificial imposition on the mind. So Bhaktivinode Thakura, he looks at these demons, and if we look at these demons through his eyes, through his Shastra, Krishna Samhita, we see that these demons are primarily dealing with mental attitudes more than physical difficulties, sensual difficulties. Because they're obstacles to our entering into deep transcendental samadhi. So he mentions in the particular chapter where these obstacles are given that this book, Krishna Samhita, is not for the Kanistha Adhikari. This is for the Madhyama Adhikari. The Kanistha is still working under regulation to bring the senses under control. The Madhyam has the senses to some extent controlled. Generally, when we look at the Madhyama Adhikari, he has certain characteristics. He has developed some fine discrimination. He has developed the ability to properly perceive what's the best opportunity for him in the material environment for spiritual advancement. He's able to make a determination of who is Krishna and what is his various energies. Who are the devotees that are favorable? Who are the innocent that are innocent? They have no bias against or for spirituality and the absolute truth, and therefore Krishna himself. And he sees those that are inimical, that have made they've drawn a line in the sand and say, I'm on this line, and there's either nothing over there, or if there is something over there, I don't want anything to do with it. So they're agnostics. They're the agnostic or the atheist class. So the Madhyam has developed this discrimination. He knows how to choose good company, and he knows how to encourage those that haven't made a choice between what is good and what is bad company, how to help them make the choice of which side of the line to go on to. So he has this outreach tendency out of gratitude. He is starting to recognize how amazing is his spiritual prospect. Or there's also another specific Madhyama Adhikari who's really a pseudo Madhyama Adhikari. He's pretending to be a Madhyama Adhikari, but he's really an Uttama. So he's coming down and he's acting like he's a Madhyama Adhikari, but he's really an Uttama Adhikari out of generosity, out of mercy. So he's not, we would not call him a Madhyama Adhikari. But he makes the discriminations. Generally, the Uttama Adhikari is in the samadhi that Bhaktivinode's talking about. to such an extent that there's no obstructions, and he doesn't discriminate, because one of the specific characteristics of that Uttama Adhikari stage is a humility which is beyond our comprehension, a humility that's so deep that the devotee cannot see himself as equal to or greater than any other living entity. If there's anything in me, that's that I'm the lowest. Well, he truly embodies Lord Chaitanya's third verse of Shastakam. Janada pi sunichena. So let us focus on the purpose of this evening's class and look at these demons. I think we made it through about 9 or 10 last time. We'll go quickly up to where we left off last time. So we have Putana, the first, representative of the false guru. Trinavarta, the whirlwind demon, representative of the baggage of false and argumentative ideas that swirl in our mind before we get true Sambandha Gyan. We're in a whirlwind of ideals of what spiritual life is and what it should be and what's right and what's wrong. So we're bringing that all with us. The third demon, Sakata, the cart demon, is similar to Trinavarta, but the cart demon is those religious conceptions we bring to spiritual practice. We feel, and it justifiably so, that spirituality is so far away from where I am. The level of materialistic thought, desire, passion, greed, anger, lust, it's an unending list. So the sadhaka is coming to spiritual life. He's thinking, I've got to, there's a lot of religious practices that I'm going to have to take up in order to pursue spirituality, in order to purify myself. Now, when we say religious practices, then we come to a religious orientation as opposed to a spiritual orientation. A religious orientation being an orientation wherein due to our conditioning, look at our endeavor as something that we have to carry. Instead of accepting the merciful position, if we can just render service and stay in good association, that will be more beneficial for us spiritually than all the austerities, charity, sacrifices that we could do in hundreds of lifetimes. Association is that important to spirituality. Hearing from the pure devotee who's situated properly is more important than all the religious dogma and ritual that we could ever take on. But we come with the cart and we think we have to take on all this religious practice. Really, spirituality is pretty simple. Bhagavatam makes it very simple. 9 items are stressed. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam. Rupa Goswami expands that a little bit in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu to 64 items that are favorable for devotional practice. And Lord Chaitanya pares it back down to 5. Chaitanya as coming through Krishnadas Kaviraj and Chaitanya Charitamrita. So these practices, living in Vrindavan, chanting, associating with the devotees. So these practices are the practices of pure devotional service, but we come with a cart of religious dogma and think that those are actually what needs to be done, whereas it's simply a burden to our spiritual life. It doesn't mean that devotees are not moral. It doesn't mean that they don't follow proper conduct, but it means that that's not the be-all and end-all of what they understand to be most beneficial for spiritual life. Sakata, this cart demon. Vatsasura, hiding as a calf amongst the other calves with the objective of stealing away Krishna's dearmost. So Vatsasura, Bhaktivinode explains that as juvenile offense. Juvenile offense explains as that natural tendency we have within the world of senses to enjoy the senses. So that's an obstacle. That we have this juvenile nature to try to exploit whatever we can get our hands on. And spiritual life, hopefully we can quickly dissipate this obstacle and grow up. Bakasura is pointed out to be cheating religion of sectarian formalities and pseudo-renunciation. Again, we see when we look at all these obstacles which are represented by the various demons Krishna killed off, they have more to do with our attitude towards spiritual life, having the proper attitude. They deal primarily with having proper sambandha gyan. If we can have proper sambandha gyan, we can move forward easily. But if we do not have sufficient guidance, if we do not engage in the practice with a depth of sincerity that calls advancement, then that's difficult for us. So Bakasura, cheating religion or sectarian formalities. Acceptance of bogus gurus, Bhaktivinode mentions, in order to attain quick results. Come to me, I'll make you Babaji, you sit, you chant 64 rounds here at Radhakund, and after 2 weeks you run off. With the, it's just, you're not there, you haven't got ruchi. How can you chant continually 24 hours a day until the taste for the holy name overwhelms you? So this kind of cheating mentality, if we just go step by step through the gradual processes Rupa Goswami outlines, now Shraddha Sadhu Sangotha Bhajana Kriya. That's our program. And if we were at Anartha Nivritti, well then let's work through Anartha Nivritti. When the offenses are no longer interfering and we make nista, there are characteristics of nista that we will know. I'm at nista now. I'm coming to nista. Nista, what are 5 major obstacles? If I still have problems with the fact that during my bhajan, I still have a tendency to sleep. I still have a tendency to let the prajalpa of the world enter into my mind during bhajan, I'm not at nista yet. I'm working on it. I'm going in the right direction, but I'm not there yet. How can I go and expect to be at Ruchi where I can chant unlimitedly while these thing is still there with me? It can't happen. Or I lack enthusiasm. Enthusiasm, the third item. It comes and goes. Sometimes I can chant with enthusiasm, even when I'm not falling asleep, and even when my mind is not engaged in mental, trying to pull me into the mindset of the materialist. Still, even when those two things aren't disturbing my bhajan, I have a tendency to just lose interest. I don't have enthusiasm. Or in bhajan, still, once in a while, there's some greed, there's some lust, there's some anger. These things come into my practice. And the last one is, I still, although whenever there's an opportunity to engage in material enjoyment, I will take advantage of it. So as long as these 5 major obstacles to Nista Bhajana Kriya are there, then I'm not at Nista. What to speak of the 6 obstacles that Vishwanath Chakravarti speaks about, the 6 stages, the 6 symptoms of unsteady devotional practice: initial enthusiasm, running hot, running cold, parading possibilities. All this knowledge is there. All this is indicative of Nista Bhajana Kriya. So, Anartha Nivritti, that's the stage. Nista Bhajana Kriya, Anartha Nivritti. The anarthas are still standing in our way. So as soon as that's there, we shouldn't cheat ourselves. Let's not run off to Vrindavan and try to chant, 24/7 and think that it's going to work. It's probably not going to work. It's probably going to be a little bit of it's like taking too much medicine before your body's mended enough. Aghasura personifies cruelty, violence, intolerance of others. You just can't accept the fact that other devotees are making progress and you aren't. Fall at their feet, maybe it'll rub off. Instead of saying, oh, why him, not me? No, this cruelty, these kind of sentiments are the mentalities that Bhaktivinode's pointing out. So, cruelty, intolerance, to the point of violence, lacking compassion is the characteristic we're speaking about here. Lacking compassion, lacking empathy, all those things that stand, the trait of the pure devotee, and I'll quote from Bhaktivinode, the basic compassion for all living entities and devotional for Krishna is the same. That speaks volumes. Brahma Vimohan Lila, maybe I am God. Let me use my mystic powers. Basically being attracted to the flowery words of the Vedas. Still thinking, well, maybe I do need to do that Asvamedha sacrifice. Maybe I do need to follow Ekadasi, because we kind of dwelled on that following of Ekadasi for the material benefit of it, instead of just because Lord Chaitanya said to do it. I want to please Lord Chaitanya, I'm going to follow Ekadasi. No, you'll get, so many lifetimes of this, and so much never be hurt in this way and live this long. And no. So Brahma Vimohan Lila represents this tendency. Nindakasura, the first demon that was killed by Balaram. A lot said there by Bhaktivinode in relationship to Dhenukasura. Having a mentality that if I can't taste the fruit of spirituality, no one can. And actually having a maliciousness in that to such an extent that trying to stop other devotees from advancing in their service. Just don't let them taste the fruit. They shouldn't read these books, just these books. They aren't ready for those books. It's a foolish notion because Krishna's guiding all of his devotees as their taste develops. But the Dhenukasuras of the world, they have some idea that they need to control the situation, and they have some. So we can't take up that kind of a mentality. If we see some other devotee is more advanced and more, I mean, I go on social media and see some young devotees just pouring out their hearts and what they're writing and their sense of what is devotional service and what is Raganuga Bhakti is lifetimes ahead of where I am. And they're just a 20, 30-year-old boy. I'm about to die. I have no sense, but this devotee is he's already assimilated the knowledge I'm just on the cusp of trying to get some comprehension of. Dhenukasura means I want to inhibit his advancement. We don't want to take that mentality. That's an obstacle to our advancement, not to his. Aristasura, the bull. False religion created by pretenders. There's some strong-hearted determination required for us to make advancement. Weak-hearted approach to spiritual life. And when I say that, I don't want to be misunderstood here. Krishna consciousness has to be taken in a way that we can advance progressively, but not fanatically, and not in a way that actually ends up making us becomes a neurosis. We become neurotic. Oh, I've got to do this today. I've got to do all this, and I couldn't do that. Oh my gosh, my spiritual life's ruined. I might as well just die. Let me kill myself. This is not the attitude of our spiritual practice. Our spiritual practice is for this Krishna consciousness is for intelligent men and women, intelligent people who knows how to use their discrimination to advance according to their capacity, not to become too lax, but not to take on more than they can handle reasonably. Aristasura is that person that is a little weak-hearted and therefore abandons the proper path of religious practice, and he takes a perverted path of his own concoction. What we would call, and what Bhaktivinode Thakura calls, show bottle devotees. It's an obstacle for us. We don't want to become that. Be honest, be straightforward. That if we do that, devotees will show us compassion. They will extend their mercy to us and will really advance. We're going to advance by being sincere, honest, and straightforward about who and what we are in this devotional life. Then a hand will come to help us. But if we stand up and sing the praises of our spiritual acumen, this is a fool's proposition. Kaliya, many-headed serpent. Bhaktivinode points out malice, brutality, treachery, counsel to devotees against Krishna. He says specifically, deceit and cruelty are as poison to the loving nature of the denizens of Braj. Then he points the readers of his Krishna Samhita to an appendix, wherein he has a whole article regarding the Kaliya pastime. And we'll go over a couple of points that he brings up there. If I can find it. All right. Okay, the serpent Kaliya, Appendix C, Krishna Samhita, Bhaktivinode Thakura. He brings out so many things, but he tries to give the reader, tries to give us a sense of what it is that what is the inner meaning of this pastime. It's something he had to have meditated on for an extended period of time. What do these different killings of the demons, what do they represent? What am I to learn from these? So he brings out that this Kaliya is, his cruelty is there, but his article deals more with why does Krishna let people like Kaliya kill his associates? Because that's what Kaliya did. The cowherd boys, they went to the lake and they immediately died. Krishna rushed there and brought them back to life. And then he entered the lake to sport. So he says here, Kaliya and those who are actuated by a naturally malicious disposition. They have a disposition of malice towards Krishna and towards Krishna's devotee. Are also styled clever. They have thousands of hoods wherein they're poised to attack the spiritual practice, the spiritual. They have great arguments. They cannot. They have this cruelty, this maliciousness, wherein they cannot stand spiritual life.
Like scientists.
Are styled clever in the ordinary phraseology of this damn world. The world looks up to the Kaliyas because they're completely supporting their materialism, like you just said, the scientists, the scholars, the great philosophers. So these are the Kaliyas who they're out to get the devotees. And Bhaktivinode says here, he says, it's very difficult to understand this because it appears Krishna permits almost every form of offense to be perpetrated with impunity against his most beloved ones. Prahlad Maharaj, what was he spared? Why does Krishna do this repeatedly with his devotees? Whether it be their fathers trying to kill them, and they're being beaten in the marketplaces to death's step. So this is where Krishna really comes up to dance. He dances on the fame of his devotees. He wants them to be famous because they stand up to this with the mood of the Vraj Bhaktis. They have no malice in their heart, so there's no retaliatory, there's nothing in them that is not, but this has to be something that's coming of my own accord. I have, this is coming, this is my cross to bear, so to speak. Or like Jesus, he bore the cross. This is my cross to bear. So the devotees have this mentality, and Krishna seems to let them get beaten down by all these multi-hooded serpents just to show the glories of his devotees. And then Krishna is so kind. He defeats those that are trying to defeat his devotees. And in doing that, treats them in a most compassionate and merciful manner. His own mercy comes to them, like Kalia. Kalia wasn't killed. Kalia was just sent away with a benediction. You can go back to where you came from and you're not going to be harmed anymore. You're not going to have to run. Garuda's not going to, he's going to see my footprints on your hoods and he's going to say, okay, you're my friend. If my Lord trounced on your head, then you must be some very special personality. There's no lunch here for me today. He closes out this in a very interesting way. Really just, again, like in the same way that the commentators, the sadhus really say, how is it possible that Putana got the benediction she got? He also brings out with Kalia. He says, the mercy shown to Kalia is so obviously and disproportionately great in its magnitude in face of the extreme gravity of his offense that no rationalistic explanation can do justice to its full beneficent significance. Now we can see where Bhaktisiddhanta got some of this. Right?
It's like Jagai and Madhava too.
Yes, they're entered into the thing. But he does point out one thing in this article. Such people that show this much malice and even that they become Krishna's devotee with his feet on their heads, that malice to Krishna's most intimate associates bars them. They are eternally barred from the service of Krishna in Vraj. Let us never come near that level of maliciousness. Vaishnava aparad is our worst enemy in this regard. The forest fire is representative of sectarianism, non-acceptance of Vaishnavas outside of your own Vaishnav group, your own Sangha. Try to create discord based on that sentimentality and sectarian mentality. Palambasura, being a false. Gopa, sneaking in there, acting like just one of the boys when really you're have some other intent. Bhaktivinode says in that regard, putting up a sham of devotion while secretly maintaining lust for women, wealth, honor, and position. Such hypocrisy must be given up. Again, it's important to note that Pralambasura was killed by Balaram. Bhaktivinode points out that both Dhenukasura and Pralambasura, who were both killed by Balaram, take some real effort on our part as sadhakas to eliminate the obstacles that they represent. So this falsity, while maintaining a material desire, strong material desire, without a desire to give it up. And I think that's important to make note of. It's not that material, we may still have tendencies, samskaras, desires, lust, anger, all these things may still be there. But if we still maintain, if we don't develop an attitude of wanting to give them up, that's what we're talking about with Pralambasura. It's not that they may not get the better of us from time to time during our devotional practice, but maintaining an attitude wherein, oh, maybe I don't have to give them up. Maybe I can. You can see where that goes.
Chanting on the strings. Are you committing offense?
It becomes an aparad, correct. It becomes an aparad. As we spoke when we spoke about
Maintaining the material desires.
Yeah, committing sinful.
just like the
activities on
seva
the
aparads. The seva aparads, they're generally not a problem until you consciously are negligent in your worship of the deity. Not that you make some mistake, because if you knew all the rules and regulations of Arjuna, the Arjuna path, you'd faint. So, Pralambasura. Indra, so the whole Govardhan, lifting of Govardhan Hill and Indra coming and not being properly worshipped by the residents of Braj. Bhaktivinode mentions that this is representative of a desire. Maybe we have some latent desire to do some worship of the demigods and get some fruit from that. Worship of minor gods for minor. If you want something, just ask Krishna. If it's good for you, he'll give it to you. If it's not good for you, then don't hold it against him. He's looking out for your best interest. Definitely don't go elsewhere. So that's what this is referring to. An obstacle wherein we think we can go elsewhere. Vomasura. Association with fools and rascals. Association with false Vishnus. Who are simply out to take advantage, cheat, and steal from others. I can't think of much of that, which is not much of it in our culture, that people come and say, I'm God. Who was it though? During Krishna's pastime?
Pandraka, claimed to be Krishna.
Was that his name?
Put on false
The
arms.
forearms.
Yeah, right. Anyway, So that's Vomasura, disguising himself, somebody disguising himself with Vishnu and allowing yourself to fall for it, I think is the way you'd look at it. You know, you're associating with sadhus who are telling you these are the characteristics, and along comes a Vomasura who looks, you know, like a cowherd boy, you know, and really he's just there to what? Ride on the shoulders of the other cowherd boys and drag them away or carry them away when they're on his shoulders. So
It was the cops and robbers. They were stealing that money.
yeah, but the winners would have to carry the others, the losers, on their shoulders. Varuna, kidnapper of Nanda, is thinking that it's okay during your spiritual practice to help it along. A little wine, make me feel a little more spiritual, maybe a peyote button, you know, maybe a little ganja. I can really get into the kirtan then. This is another obstacle that we have to be careful of.
Like taking intoxicants.
Trying to, you know, embellish your spiritual mood. Is Bhaktivinode uses the word enhance your spirituality. Sankachuda, kidnapping of the gopis. We come back Pratista, from your devotional practice, you want to gain name and fame. So much so that you can kidnap the gopis. Then we have the snake that swallowed Nanda Maharaj. This feeling when we enter, and here again, I can only go theoretically here, but as we enter into samadhi, there's a sense of true tranquility there. Bhaktivinode says, if we have a sense of merging with the Lord, because we're separating our senses from the external world, we're turning them off, we're turning off the mind, we're trying to enter into a serving mentality in bhajan, where we can enter into Krishna's Lila with that mentality. But if we let the sense of tranquility that comes with that deep meditation overcome us and feel that it's okay to merge in the presence of the Lord, merge, feeling, you know what I'm saying? Feeling some sense of relief and thinking, no, our sense has to be, we want to enter into service to the Rigatmikas. That's Raganuga Bhakti. So if we get a little content with Prameti, Paramatmeti, you know, without the service to Bhagavaniti, then that's what's being referred to here in the snake swallowing Nanda Maharaj. Keshi, the horse, cooking up our heels and thinking our devotional service is so much better than everybody else's. Obstacle, not good for our spiritual progress. Look, I have so much, I know so many verses. Whatever we may think, when we're thinking that I have a sense of superiority because of the level of my devotional practice or the expertise of my practice. This is not a mentality that's favorable to spiritual advancement. It's an obstacle. And this is what Keishi represents. These are the 18 obstacles represented by the demons that entered into Vraj Bhumi to create havoc. Bhaktivinode adds 2 more pastimes in Vraj for a total of 20. The one is the falling of the twin Arjuna trees, Nalakuvara and Manigriva. He says if we have an arrogance about our wealth and our good position, that's not going to be good for us. And the arrogance of the brahmanas performing this sacrifice, thinking that we have such a good position because of our spiritual position in society. From the Western world, we're not plagued too much with this one. But in the culture of India, the Brahmins definitely feel they have one up on everybody else. So that's not a good mentality for spiritual advancement. It's fact that they're supposed to be the leaders, and it's great that they were given such an auspicious birth, which is so conducive for spiritual advancement. But to become arrogant over that is not to call your spiritual progress. So with that, we've covered the 20 obstacles that Bhaktivinode's spoken of in Krishna Samhita. Are there any questions? Yes.
Well, you mentioned that these are for the Madhyam, but it seems like they're kind of really elementary obstacles, something that the Kanishta would deal with, not a Madhyam. When you're at the Madhyam platform, I wouldn't think your heart would be full of malice and greed and stuff.
I may have missed, what he said is this book is for the Madhyam.
Yeah, you could say that.
So no, it's not that these obstacles don't interfere with all of our spiritual, everyone's spiritual practice, Kanishta and Madhyam up to the, So in other words, the overall book is based upon developing a mentality that's good for entering into Vraj meditation. And to see these as a Madhyamadikari, having the fine discrimination to see how they're impeding entering into what he refers to as natural samadhi. But yes, you're right. Even the Kanishta would have to deal with these, certainly. But understand, when we talk Kanishta, we're talking the Kanishta is that devotee that walks into the temple and doesn't even recognize the sadhus. Madhyam is a very broad thing. Kanishta is beginning. The faith is very tender at Kanishta. Easily swayed from any devotional practice. I think generally we would see in the Sangha, the devotee Sangha that we have the good fortune of having in this, in the wake of Srila Prabhupada, the majority are situated somewhere in the Madhyam. Right? They're serious. They want to be devotees. But if there's still a lot of Kanishta coming there, don't misunderstand me. Madhyam is that's some pretty distinct discrimination just to be able to see who's a Madhyam. The Kanishta will see he and the Madhyam are the same. Being able to recognize I'm not anywhere near as advanced as those devotees. That's a characteristic of humility. That is. So, but yes, I understand what you're saying. Anything else? Thank you so much for your association. Hare Krishna.
Dulal Chandra Prabhu ki jai.